monkey.
Shh. Just watch.
I didn't want to play Kiss JC, but Tamara said I had to play because everyone else was playing.
Guess what? Miss Chen asked if we want to dance at assembly, and I said yes.
Never let anyone else have a turn. You think you own the monkey bar.
I don't know how to explain it. It's just not my time yet.
You should have asked me before making it public.
Delete the incredibly insensitive thing you just sent.
You did a great job, Lottie.
You did too, Tal.
Hi everyone. We'd like to begin by respectfully acknowledging the custodians of the lands on which we are on, the lands of Wurundjeri people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, as well as acknowledge the lands of the peoples on which you're joining us today. We honour their continuing cultures and connection to the lands, waters and skies, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people throughout Australia. Welcome to Respect in Action, our professional development session on using screen text to teach consent in the secondary classroom. My name is Bridget and I'm the Education Manager at the ACTF, and supporting our session in the chat today is Katie, the ACTF's Digital Education Coordinator. At the ACTF, we support the development and production of quality children's screen content. We do this by providing financial support for projects, but also through our continued advocacy for children's content and by distributing Australian programs all over the world. In the education team, we develop educational resources and events to support teachers using this funded content in the classroom. So this afternoon, I'm hoping to get you thinking about how you can and why you should use Australian screen content in your classrooms to explore consent and respectful relationships with your students. Imagine watching TV as a child and never seeing anyone who looks, sounds, or lives like you. Now imagine the impact of seeing your own world reflected on screen, your language, your culture, your experiences, the diversity of your community. That feeling of recognition is powerful. It fosters confidence, belonging, and a sense of possibility. Australian content matters because it tells our stories. It helps kids see themselves and others in an authentic way, shaping their understanding of the world. And diverse representation not only affirms individual identity, but also builds empathy, showing young viewers the richness of different lives and perspectives. Of course, Australian screen content does more than just tell our stories. They help kids develop essential life skills like respect, communication, and consent. Today, I'm excited to introduce our new Consent and Respectful Relationships resource, which is designed to give students the confidence and kindness to navigate relationships. With realistic scenarios, it sparks discussions on key topics like personal boundaries, bodily autonomy, sexual consent, and digital privacy and online behaviour. The resource is divided by year level, and each lesson includes 3 clips from Australian shows with scaffolded tasks, including practical scenarios so that students can develop skills. We know that talking about consent in the classroom can be challenging. Students might feel awkward, unsure, or even reluctant to engage. But when we use clips from TV shows, we give them a way in. So instead of talking about themselves or their peers, they can analyse the choices of characters in the fictional world, which creates just enough distance to spark open, thoughtful discussion. For educators, this resource is designed to make teaching consent and respectful relationships easier and more effective for you. It provides strategies for creating a safe, open learning environment, tools to spark meaningful conversations, and guidance on modelling positive behaviours that promote inclusivity and empathy. Plus, it connects students with support resources, ensuring they know where to turn when they need help. What's so great about this resource is that it has also been reviewed and shaped by the respectful relationships experts from state and territory education departments across the country. With this valuable feedback, we've been able to really shape the resource, and it's also been supported by the ACTF's Education Advisory Panel, which includes representatives from every state and territory. So today I want to look at just a few examples for the secondary section of the consent resource. so that I can give you a little bit of a taste test and hopefully get you interested in exploring the space a bit more with your students. So in Year 7 and 8, students explore and practice assertive, respectful communication strategies to seek, give and deny consent while understanding the ethical importance of consent in personal, social and digital contexts. This section of the resource includes clips from 3 series: Dance Academy, Crazy Fun Park and The PM's Daughter. Now, when developing this resource, we had at the front of our mind that teachers know their students best. So that's why this resource is designed to be very flexible. You have the freedom as the teacher to choose the clips and tasks that best suit your class, allowing you to tailor the discussions and activities to meet your students' needs. Let's watch a clip from the clip from Dance Academy that's shared in this section of the resource, and then we'll have a look through some of the activities. What the resource does is obviously you're coming into these very short clips from episodes in a full series and sometimes multiple series, TV series. So what we do is we provide some context of that clip. So here's some context for the next scene from Dance Academy. So Sammy is secretly dating Ollie, and Sammy has not openly shared this relationship. But Ollie, without permission, begins to tell people about the relationship. In this clip, we see 2 scenes. The first is when Sammy finds out that Ollie has told his friends, and later in the episode when Sammy confronts Ollie and expresses that he was not ready to make their relationship public.
And be able to tell the truth in every situation.
You told your friends about us.
I didn't think it was a secret.
No, it isn't. Anymore.
Hey, you know Ness and Will? What do you think of our career assessment?
Hey, can I just talk to you for a second?
Sure. Will's organising a futsal team if you...
Yeah, I wasn't ready to tell our friends about us.
Okay. Did they take it badly?
It's irrelevant. You should have asked me before making it public.
Look, I know this is a big deal for you, but trust me, it's better to rip off the Band-Aid. You don't want to be sneaking around.
Yeah, well, maybe I was comfortable with the Band-Aid. You know, a bit of time to figure out whether I wanted to alter my entire life. But no, thank you for deciding that for me. It's premature anyway. Shortest relationship ever.
So for this clip, the tasks ask students to reflect on the importance of privacy, consent and trust in relationships and how disclosing someone's sexuality without consent can cause harm. They can then explore respectful communication strategies, write a script demonstrating a supportive conversation and present it to the class to model thoughtful and respectful interactions. I'll just give you a moment to read the task that's on the screen and consider how your students might respond to these questions. And feel free to share some of your thoughts in the chat because we love to hear them. The tasks that we've developed for each of these clips have a scaffolded approach and they're loosely based on Bloom's taxonomy. So they're structured in 3 stages. There's reflect, which is the example that you see on screen. There's an explore task and a create task. So the create task for this clip asks students to write a script for the scene where Sammy has a safe and respectful conversation with a friend. This approach helps students navigate discussions about consent through the perspective of the series characters, which makes the topic a little more accessible. And if your students don't know how to write a script, don't worry, we have a resource to support that. And Katie's going to add a link in the chat for you now. Right, let's watch a clip from the television series Crazy Fun Park. Crazy Fun Park follows the main character Chester, who's a teenager, and he discovers that his best friend Maplethorpe, who died in an abandoned theme park, now exists as a ghost trapped in this theme park in a mysterious afterlife. In the clip, Chester enters Maplethorpe's house without permission and takes his toy dragon, believing that he's helping his friend be more at ease in his purgatory at Crazy Fun Park. However, he has very good intentions, but they backfire when he tells a white lie, claiming that Maplethorpe's mum is coping well with his death. This deception leaves Maplethorpe feeling hurt and betrayed.
Hello? Felicity? Thought it would help us brainstorm. Our new villain.
Went to my house. How's my mum?
How about we
She
get back
seemed
to the
cool.
game?
Really?
Yeah, really good. The house was real tidy. I thought she was doing great. No worries there.
You said you could go to my house. You can't just go there without me.
I thought I was using my privilege to make this better.
Come on. Let's party till we puke.
So the tasks linked to this clip guide students to reflect on personal space, boundaries, and consent by discussing how power and privilege can shape relationships. They then develop communication skills through role-playing before stepping into the perspectives of Chester and Maplethorpe through journal writing to explore the emotional impact of consent. So this is one of my favourite tasks because it encourages students to truly step into the shoes of both characters, fostering empathy and deeper understanding. By exploring the perspectives of each character, students can reflect on how actions, words, and decisions can impact others. This not only helps them grasp the importance of consent, but also strengthens their ability to consider different viewpoints and develop more respectful communication skills, which we know are key to respectful relationships education. So in the Year 9 to 12 lesson, students examine the importance of consent, communication, and trust in relationships and critically evaluate strategies to navigate and address situations involving privacy, boundaries, and respect. So something to note is that the clips in this section are rated PG or M, so you may need to get additional permissions from parents before showing these clips in the classroom. And something that we recommend teachers do before using any of these resources in the classroom is to read and use these with your students, the consent resources from Kids Helpline, as well as familiarising yourself with your own state and territories resources and guidelines. So in this clip that I'm going to show you, it's from the television show More Than This. Two characters, Charlotte and Leon, are arguing in the school bathroom. We learn that Leon and Charlotte used to be in a relationship, and Leon cheated on Charlotte with Legs, who's another student at the school. Leon and Legs are now dating. So this is the first moment that Charlotte and Leon discuss this betrayal of trust. Something to note as well before we watch this clip is that it includes strong language. It is one of my favourite clips to discuss with students on consent. The other two in this section of the resource from Dance Academy and Ready for This are also amazing clips. We don't have time to show them all today, but we'll stick with More Than This first.
Now.
All right, so
I get that it was shitty, but you got to understand the circumstance. Just listen. I was drunk, and you didn't speak to me for 5 days, and Legs was just there, and...
Why did you do it?
Fuck, Shah. I get it was wrong.
Which part? Which part did you think was wrong? Was it when you cheated on me and didn't tell me, or when you broke up with me via text with no explanation? Because you've done some pretty wrong things.
Listen, I'm sorry, okay? You weren't replying to any of my calls or texts. It was making me feel like shit. And we were just like fighting all the time. It just happened. I get that I hurt you and I feel bad and that I know what I did was fucked. And it was so stupid because you meant so much to me.
All good, mate.
Shit.
So the tasks linked to this clip ask students to analyse the scene, discussing power dynamics, respect, and the absence of clear communication and consent in Leon and Charlotte's relationship. You can see those on the screen now. Then they can explore insights from our teen podcast. And then the create task is to rewrite the scene so that it includes more explicit asking and confirming of consent. I wanted to draw your attention to the podcast. So 2 years ago, we created the Even More Than This podcast with teen hosts Anika and Ling. And it was a great reminder of just how tuned in young people are to these conversations. On screen, you'll see one of the tasks for this clip. And while you read through that task, I'd just like you to have a listen to what Anika and Ling had to say about this scene, noting that straight before this section of the podcast, they actually listened to the audio from the clip that we just watched.
So what we all just heard was a clip from Leon and Charlotte's fight, which, in my opinion, was the juiciest part of the whole episode, but it also highlighted really well, like, the dynamic of a toxic relationship, because everything we heard Leon say was, I feel, so accurate, but also manipulative. So basically what happened was that Leon cheated on Charlotte with Legs, and he was essentially, like, just giving her excuses, saying things like, oh, you weren't responding, and Legs was just there, as if like Charlotte's absence was the only thing keeping him from cheating. You know what I mean? And I think it goes to show like how some people in a relationship cheat simply because they're too scared to break up with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that Leon really plays into that whole ideology of victim blaming, firstly. But I also like how Charlotte does call him out on like which part. I feel like that's such a powerful line. Because like I knew what I did was wrong. Which part? Because you've done some pretty wrong things. Like, yes, exactly. Go, girl. When people are in those situations, they kind of sweet talk their way through because their partner or the person on the receiving end, maybe they're so infatuated by them, they can easily be manipulated. And we've all either been this person, or maybe our friend has been this person, or one of our family members has been this person. And I feel like when you're in this kind of relationship, you kind of romanticize all of the good things that they're saying and you really feed into them because your emotions are thinking rather than your head or rather than your like logic, and you're struggling to see what's actually really going on.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think that relates to what happens like at the end of this scene, which also brings up the question of consent because basically like during their whole confrontation or fight, they actually ended up kissing at the end, and it was like a very heat of the moment scenario, and it was very much giving like enemies to lovers. Because from the outside, it's clear that there's like two opposing rivals. Yet Leon physically pushes forward and becomes, you know, like both literally and metaphorically the only thing she can see. And Charlotte was in so much control for the first few minutes, like you said. And I think because he invaded her space like that, he brought down her guard, and then she eventually gave in. And it was clear, like, from the argument and her words that she didn't want to kiss him at all. And it wasn't the appropriate thing to do, yet it still happened. So do you think that this was wrong?
yes, because it wasn't mutually kind of like agreed upon. Like he was kind of, as you said, he really invaded her space. When we talk about personal bubbles, there was nothing there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think that that was the right thing to do. Also, given the context of the situation, obviously they don't know, like that's not the situation. That was not the right thing to do at that point in time. I think for me, what was particularly really hard to watch in that scene and watching it all play out was just the way that Charlotte really crumbled under Leon's kind of influence. That was what I was really struggling to watch. What about you, Ling?
Yeah, personally, I do blame Leon because, like, he knew she was vulnerable and he wasn't really thinking of anyone else in the situation except for himself, which is obvious because if he was thinking about her, I think he wouldn't have kissed her. And I think he was being selfish, and this resulted in nothing being solved, and then even more guilt from Charlotte's side of the story, because then after that we see the scene of, like, you know, she's crying in the lockers because, you know, she just feels so, like, hurt from everything he's done.
Totally, and deflated, and rightly so. And I think it's really interesting because as adolescents, we're experiencing these kinds of relationships for the first time. You know what I mean? These are new experiences. And so I think as you progress in every relationship that you partake in or that you pursue, you learn from each one. And I feel as though for people watching, you can really learn from the experiences of Charlotte and Leon and learn, okay, this is how this is done. This is quite common actually in real life. How can I improve, or how can I kind of change my ways or learn from this situation when I go about my own relationships?
Yeah, and it's definitely true that because as teens, we're still growing up and we're still trying to navigate this world, and all of these relationships are new experiences for us. So how it impacts us is going to be different. And I think this.
So that podcast was driven by Anika and Ling. They picked which parts of the episodes they wanted to talk about in each podcast episode, and they framed the whole discussion around the question, what does it mean to be an adolescent today? So it's a really interesting podcast. If you do get a chance to have a look, I highly recommend. Now, I've only shown you a few examples from this resource, which actually includes 15 clips with accompanying activities across primary and secondary year levels. We actually have a PD just like this for primary school teachers tomorrow. So if you know anyone, please share that with them so that they can sign up. We'll put a link to the resource as well as a feedback form in the chat now. We're able to make these free resources because of the support of so many different spaces, but getting your feedback, which helps to drive our direction, is really valuable. So if you do just have 2 or 3 minutes after the session today to give us some feedback, we would really appreciate it. And we'll also email you a link to the resource and the feedback form after the session, probably tomorrow with a link to this recording. Before you go, please take a moment to add any questions or comments in the chat if you have them. We've got a little bit of time to answer some questions. While we wait for your comments and questions to come through, I'd like to mention our newsletter, where you can sign up to stay updated on our free events and resources. And you can also plan ahead by checking out our upcoming events in the online education calendar. So Katie is going to put some of those links in the chat for you now. I'll see if there's any questions that have come through. All right, it looks like you're all pretty happy. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We'll leave the webinar running just for a few minutes. So if you want to save any of the links that Katie has shared, you've got some time to do that. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and we hope to see you next time.